Thank you, Mr. Garner. Mr. Otake, are you ready to present defendant's opening statement?
I am, Your Honor. Thank you.
Please,
Just a second to get set up here.
take your time, whenever you're ready.
Thanks.
Ready? Please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. There are often two sides to every story, and it's only fair that we wait to hear both sides before we start to make up our mind. You just heard one side. You just heard one side. And this is my opportunity to share with you the other side. To share with you the full story, both sides. To share with you the complex human interactions between Gerhardt and his wife, and the complex human chain of events between December and March that resulted in him sitting here falsely accused of attempted murder. And the evidence will show he is falsely accused of attempted murder. And let me get one thing straight from the start. He never, ever confessed to his son on that phone call. The evidence will show that's not true. This is a long, complex human story. And I'm going to walk you through all the details of it this morning. However, the evidence will show that this story, this human story, can be summarized best in 3 words, just in summary, 3 words. Unfaithful, unwilling, and untrue. Unfaithful, unwilling, and untrue. Unfaithful. Gerhardt Konig was unfaithful to her husband. In the latter part of 2024, she engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a man she worked with, a married man named Jeffrey Miller, an affair. When Gerhardt discovered it in early December 2024, he was heartbroken. He was devastated. And he didn't know if they could come back from that. He didn't know if he could trust her again. He didn't know if he wanted to. But they both had a lot invested in this marriage. They both had moved to Maui. They had 2 very young boys together. And they thought they should try. Both of them wanted to try. But in order to try, there was going to be things that Gerhardt needed on a human level. On a human level, there's just going to be things he needed to heal from her inappropriate relationship with Mr. Miller. He was going to need her to quit her job and never speak to, communicate, or be together with Mr. Miller again. Understandable. She loved her job. She liked her job very much. It was a very rare, unique job. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But he needed her to quit and not be around Mr. Miller. He needed her to accept responsibility, not minimize, not be defensive, show remorse for this relationship that she had. And you will see the messages, some of them, because she deleted most of them. But the ones you'll see. And you'll see where she, in text messages to him, admits that she had an affair. You'll see it. So he needed her to accept it, and he needed her to show remorse. And he needed her to give up some of her secrecy. She had been hiding things, deleting things, so he needed that. If he was going to trust her again, he needed her to be more open and not hide these things. And he needed some intimacy from her, emotional intimacy, but also physical, to feel better, to feel like she still cared about him. Unwilling, second word. The evidence will show that after being confronted by him, she initially admits to it, accepts responsibility, and says she wants to do these things, says, yeah, you're right, I want to make this work, I'm going to quit my job, no more contact with Miller, do all these things. Very quickly, that changed. She very quickly became unwilling to do those things that it was going to take to live this way, to make it work. Primarily, she did not want to quit her job, and not seeing Mr. Miller in person was affecting her job. So she didn't quit. She said, but I just won't talk to him, I won't be with him. But that was affecting her job into January and February. So she quickly became unwilling to do those things. And that unwillingness led to a very tumultuous January and February of 2025, because they would make some progress, and then she wouldn't be willing. They would take a couple steps back. It was an emotional roller coaster for both of them. Complex human interactions. But they were trying. They were trying. This leads to March when, in an effort to try, Gerhardt asks her, hey, your birthday's coming up, what do you want to do? She is the one who said, hey, I've been wanting to go on a staycation to Oahu. You will see it. She admits to that. So they go on this trip to Oahu, and they go on this hike, and I'm going to get into a lot more details, but you're going to hear how on the hike she brought it up, and she said, hey, it's been a while now, I got to see Mr. Miller again for work, you got to trust me. And he's dumbfounded. He realizes they made zero progress over the last 3 months. She doesn't understand what he's going through. She's not willing to do what it's going to take, and he tells her, well, this isn't going to work. You're going to have to move out, and I'm going to tell all our family and friends about your affair. It's just not going to work. This leads to a physical altercation that she started. She came after him, started kicking, punching. They end up on the ground. She's swinging at him. He's grabbing an arm. She's swinging with the other arm. She's kicking him. As the prosecutor said, they're on the ground. She picks up a rock and hits him in the face with it. And he quickly reacts, human reaction, grabs the rock, hits her twice, and stops. Untrue. After that, knowing that the marriage is over, knowing that this is heading for a divorce and custody battle, the evidence will show Gerhardt Konig says many untrue things about what happened. And she did so, you will see, to get the upper hand in the coming divorce and custody case. And you will see how she is using the allegations in this case, in the divorce, to get everything. His retirement, the house, full custody, everything. Unfaithful to her husband, unwilling to do what it was going to take, untrue things after all of this happens on the cliff. Says untrue things. I'm going to get into this in a lot more detail over the next half an hour, but there's a few things I want to address up front. The evidence will show there was absolutely no premeditated plan to take her up to this busy parking lot, the Pali Lookout parking lot, in broad daylight in the middle of the morning at 10-something in the morning, and try to kill her in broad daylight. There was no premeditated plan. This was a unplanned, unanticipated scuffle that happened between a couple. There was no plan. Number two, the evidence will show there was absolutely no syringes on the mountain that day. He didn't have any syringes, wasn't trying to stab her. The evidence will show he never tried to throw her off the cliff. She attacked him, pushed him, and they ended up in a scuffle on the ground. He never tried to throw off the cliff. Number four, the evidence will show he did hit her with the rock. He did hit her with the rock. And she does have, I'll tell you, she's got a bad cut on her head. She's got a severe laceration on her head from it. And it bleeds a lot. But the evidence will show, medically speaking, it looked worse than it was. You'll hear from Queen's doctors who treated her that day and said that there was no substantial risk of death from the cut, and it didn't even rise to the level of serious bodily injury. She had no skull fractures, brain bleeds. They stitched her up. They let her go the next morning. That's what the medical evidence will show. The evidence will show he never confessed to his son. I'm going to talk more about that later. That's what the evidence will show. Now, before I get into the details more, I want to share a little bit with you about Dr. Konig, Gerhardt. He's 47 years old. He was 46 when this happened. He was actually born and raised initially in South Africa. His parents, Peter, his dad, and his mom, Emil, flew in today. They were raising the kids. He has 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister. LaRue, Ruan, and Lisa, his siblings. At some point when Gerhardt was about 9th grade, they moved to San Diego. Just things going on in South Africa at the time. They wanted to come in a better situation. Gerhardt graduated from high school, went to college, UC San Diego, majored in bioengineering. Worked a little bit, went to med school. He got married young, his first marriage when he was 20 years old. He married a lady named Jessica Ray Patella. And they had 2 kids when he was relatively young, still in medical school. Ophelia, his older daughter, and then Emil. You're going to hear a lot about Emil. And he finished med school. He did his residency in anesthesiology and became board certified, was actually teaching as a professor. And sometime in his residency, his first marriage, they separated, they got a divorce. So he knows what it's like to get a divorce. It's not ideal. He didn't want to do it again. But it wasn't a situation where, like, if he had to, I'm going to kill her if I can't be with her. No, he's been through it. So they separate, and from his first wife. When it's time for him to start dating again, he goes online and uses dating for a couple of free dating apps. It didn't really work out, so he paid for a subscription to eharmony.com. And at some point, Ariel Konig reaches out to him, and they go on a date at a bar, and things progress from there. They get married in 2018. They have their first son, Olin, is born in 2020. And they're living in Pittsburgh at the time. He's working, she's working. And they wanted to find a safer place to live. There was a lot of gun violence in the area. It was important to them to find a safer, maybe warmer place as well. And they fell in love with Maui. For those reasons, they fell in love with Maui. It was going to be a hit to their careers, though, because especially her, what she does, nuclear engineering, and she works on these big nuclear energy projects. There wasn't really jobs like that in Maui, but she wanted to do that and come here. And so that's what they did. They moved here in March of 2023, and right before they moved here, literally the month before, their second son, Vigo, was born. Right before they moved. So they move here, and from March 2023 until December 2024, for Gerhardt, it was a dream life. He got a good job at Maui Memorial. He loved his wife. He loved his kids, living in paradise on Maui. It was a great life. He loved his marriage. In 2024, we find out Ariel didn't necessarily feel the same way. In August of 2024, she has to travel a lot for work because she works virtually. In August of 2024, she goes on a trip to South Africa with Jeffrey Miller. And Gerhardt knows about it, but he has no reason to be concerned. He's not really worried about it at all. She comes back. In October, the family, they go on a trip to Kauai for Emil's birthday. And for the first time, he starts to see some red flags. He overhears her talking on the phone to Mr. Miller, which is supposed to be a work call, and it just didn't sound right. It was overly flirty. It was the way someone in a relationship would talk to another, and it bothered him. But he said, maybe, I'm not, it's weird, but, Things progress in November and December. He keeps seeing these things. When he walks in, she's texting somebody, she hides her phone, and he starts to, a lot of red flags. So he goes into detective mode. And in early December, when she's sleeping, he logs onto her phone, and she's not text messages, not emails for work. She finds a WhatsApp message thread between her and Miller. And it was more than flirty. It was very, very concerning. It was inappropriate. And what concerned him a lot is it was clear she was deleting a lot of it. So he's really, really worried. Really worried. He stays home the next day, and now he uses his computer and he logs onto WhatsApp, and he's able to log into her WhatsApp. And he sees live the communication throughout the day between her and Miller. And it was clear what was going on between the two of them. And he'll tell you about what he saw. Knowing now that she was in this inappropriate relationship and this affair with Mr. Miller, he was heartbroken. And he didn't know quite what to do. So a couple of days go by. They had a trip planned to San Luis Obispo, and he ends up confronting her about it there. She's immediately apologetic. She says she admits to it, and they have, it's hard. It's a lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of working through it that weekend. They don't know what to do, and he was telling her, I don't know maybe you should move out. Maybe you should move out. And by the end, they agree. Okay, not going to move out, but these are the things that he needed, right? And we talked about that, and he shared. With her, she needed to quit her job. She needed to not see him anymore, and all the things that I talked to you about earlier. They get back to Maui, and she actually starts looking for a new job. You will hear that there's no other job like hers, and she quickly realizes she wasn't willing to give that up. her career mattered to her more than doing what Gerhardt needed to stop working with this man. Now, January and February, like I said, a lot of emotional roller coaster, working on it, making progress, realizing she starts minimizing, she starts bringing up things he should have done differently. They end up in counseling. The counseling's about other things as well, and they're making some progress. It's kind of like one step forward, two steps back, but they're still trying. And this comes to the March trip that I talked to you about. Now, he does suggest, let's do something for your birthday. She says, why don't we go on a trip to Oahu? This was not some big plan of his to get her to Oahu, the more crowded place, and try to kill her in broad daylight. Okay, that's the evidence will not support that. They came here for her birthday. The first night, I think they get here on a Sunday. They have a good day. They go to the spa together. You'll see some photos from the trip. They're enjoying themselves. They go to dinner that night. Next day is her birthday. They wake up, they go downstairs, they get coffee. The plan was they were going to go on this hike. She knew about the hike. They researched it together before coming here. She packed her hiking stuff. It was something that she was excited about. And then after that, they were going to spend some time at the pool. And you will see the reservation from Fett Restaurant that he made for dinner that night. You will see it. He had dinner reservations for Fett that very night when apparently he had a plan to throw off a mountain that day. There was reservations at the restaurant. So that was what the day was supposed to be. You'll hear they start heading up to the mountain. And that morning, you'll hear about some life insurance issues. You'll hear that after this affair and all of that, as a way to kind of commit, he wanted to increase his life insurance for her. He wanted to increase his for her. So you'll hear he took the steps to increase his life insurance to $1.5 million. And it came in two stages. The million got approved about a week or so before. And that morning, the second half of that got approved. And you see on the document, he made her the sole beneficiary. He got an email that very morning of the hike. And he shared it with her. And he said, hey, look, good news. It's all approved. 1.5 million in effect. I think hers was up to maybe 250,000 or something like that. And so that was on the way there. He shared that with her. So they get there, and you're going to see the body cam, or you're going to see evidence. It's a super crowded parking lot. Tour buses, tourists, people everywhere, cars everywhere. He says, well, it was a separate tour bus one, and that they're right next to each other. It's the same parking lot. It's a very, very crowded place. It's a popular trail. This incident that they described, that I'll describe today, it took place about 5 minutes in from that parking lot. It took place 5 minutes in from that parking lot in broad daylight. There was no effort to go on this hike alone. They had some trouble. First time there, they're looking for the trailhead. They go to check out the Pali Lookout. They start up on the trail. On the trail, they start talking about the progress they're making and things like that. And she says, hey, I need you to start trusting me more. It's been a while. We've made progress. I got to be able to travel for work. I got to be able to be in the same place as Mr. Miller. You don't have to worry about it, but I do need, it's impacting my work, okay? We're not here saying that she wanted to divorce him and marry Mr. Miller. She had this, affair on the side and whatever it was, but now she was worried about her job. And she was saying, I got to be able, it's affecting my work. And he's dumb, like I said, he's dumbfounded. It showed that she had zero understanding of what he was going through in the last 3 months, how hard it was for him. And that leads him to tell her, this is crazy. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And you're going to have to move out, and people are going to ask why, and I'm going to tell them why. Because of your relationship with Mr. Jeffrey Miller, your coworker. Of course, she's upset. And this is very important. You will hear this from her. At that point, she says, I don't want to go on this hike anymore. Understandably, they're in a big fight, right? But they're 5 minutes in from the parking lot. You'll see it's not very far up. It's not sheer cliffs on every side when you're walking up there. There's bushes and, they're 5 minutes in. And she says, I don't want to go on this hike. Very important. he says, okay, well, fine, I'm going on up on my own. And he leaves her there and continues on. That will be undisputed. Leaves her there. Equally important. He goes up a little bit, 5 minutes in, and he's like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to go on this hike. Just forget it. Let's just go back to the hotel and just, go home. Comes back down, and she will tell you this, undisputed. He gets there, and he says to her, oh, you're still here. I thought you were going back to the car. The evidence will show he had no plan to take her up there and kill her. The evidence will show he left her on the hike thinking she was going back to the car. This idea about, oh, she got away and escaped from me. He left her thinking she was going back to the car. This is not some fight over not wanting to take a photo in the right place. He gets back down there, and she's acting different, and she's acting very differently. You'll hear about it. And what happens next is he turns around, and he's just, they're talking, and she's saying, look, let's just forget about it. We'll, whatever. He's looking out over towards the cliff area, and he feels a shove from behind. And he turns around, and he says to her, what the hell was that? And it felt to him that she tried to push him towards the edge. And he turns around, and he says to her, what are you doing? And she starts screaming. However he said it, help, help, help. She starts screaming. And she's backing away after pushing him, and she's yelling, help, help, help. She's not saying he's hitting me, he's killing me, or anything like that. You'll hear from the witnesses. They thought somebody fell off the cliff. And he's turning around, he's saying, what are you doing? Why did you push me? And he's walking towards her, and she's yelling, help, help. And he puts his hands on her to calm her down, and she starts swinging. She starts kicking, he's grabbing her, ends up on the ground. This scuffle was unplanned, unexpected, and escalated quickly. They're on the ground. I described what happened. She's punching him, she's kicking him, he's on top of her trying to stop, hits him, she tries to grab that arm, hits him with the other arm, kicking him. She picks up the rock and hits him with the rock on the side of his head. And she tries to hit him again, he stops, he gets the rock, and in a split second, human reaction, under attack, he hits her with the rock. It was a reflex, it was a reaction, it was in response to the force that he had just experienced. But he stops. Because the hit made her stop. And as soon as she stopped, he stopped. It was about this time these two witnesses got there. One of them doesn't even see him hit her at all. The other will tell you she saw one hit. They got there. They said when they heard it, they came around the corner, and by then he was standing, and he had the rock, and he didn't hit her. They saw the very tail end of this. They don't know how it started. They didn't see who started it. They got there at the very end. He hit her once, and he stopped. After that, the witnesses are there. She's yelling out to them. She crawls down to them, and you hear from them. He stands there. He doesn't come after her. He doesn't aggress towards them. He doesn't yell at them. He doesn't try to grab her and continue to throw her off. She had stopped assaulting him. He had backed away. And he saw that she was okay. He saw that she was talking and yelling to the witnesses. He saw that. And they make their way down the trail. Now, the ambulance comes. There's a lot of blood because you'll hear that part of the head. The scalp, it bleeds a lot. They take her to Queens, and you'll hear when they get there, because she was not in any type of critical condition, she never lost consciousness or anything like that. The ambulance has to wait outside for 20 to 30 minutes or more because of triage, because there's more serious patients. So they're sitting in the ambulance waiting. Okay. She eventually tells the police detective that he wanted her to take a selfie. She didn't want to. And he said, I'm sick of this shit. And he grabbed her, tried to throw her off the cliff, picked up, had some syringes, which apparently she says she can just flick out of his hand. And then she tells the detective, he beats her with the rock 10 times with all his might. Over and over and over and over again. I know that wasn't 10, but you get the point, okay? Over and over again. She says 10 times with all his might. He beats her with the rock. You will see photos of it. You will hear from the medical experts in this case. 2 from Queens, and we have a forensic pathologist who will talk to you about that. The physical injuries, while the laceration is significant, is inconsistent with being hit in your head 10 times with all your might. She had no skull fractures, no brain bleeds, no orbital fractures. She never lost consciousness. The 2 doctors said there was no substantial risk of death. They said that it wasn't serious bodily injury. And she went home the next day. I'll be the first to tell you, the photos you're going to see are graphic. There is a bad laceration from the hit from the rock. You'll see it. You'll see it. There's a bad laceration. But you'll hear, medically speaking, from the medical doctors in this case, it's not as bad as it looks. You're going to see there's blood everywhere because you'll hear that area, a lot of blood vessels, there's blood everywhere. She never loses consciousness, no risk of death from the injuries, stitched up, went home the next day. And it was a rock. He hit her with a rock in response to her hitting him. So, meanwhile, Gerhardt's up on the mountain. And this is important. Okay, you're going to hear a lot of evidence from him, what was happening, going through his mind. This is, like I said, the evidence will show this is a human story. Okay, human story. He's stunned about what happened. He's in shock. He doesn't go after them. They go down. And he immediately goes into almost a despondent state. He realizes his marriage is over. He realizes she's yelling to them, call the police, he's trying to kill me. He realizes his career could very well be over. He saw that she was hurt. And you'll hear. He was disappointed. He was remorseful. He was upset about the whole incident. He never wanted it to come to that. He never wanted her to be hurt. And he was disappointed in himself that he reacted that way, the way he did. He was remorseful that he reacted in that split second. And he went into a deep state of depression, sadness, disappointment, to a place where he became suicidal. And they're going to say the evidence shows his consciousness of guilt that he stayed on the mountain. The evidence will show it shows that he was human, dealing with this, what just happened, realizing he could lose everything, and his marriage is over. So he stayed up on the mountain, and he was suicidal. He was going back and forth between jumping off the cliff and not thinking about his kids. And the one person he wanted to talk to was his 19-year-old son, Emil. His son, not Miss Konig's. And he calls Emil, and you'll hear. It was an incredibly emotional phone call. He was calling him to say goodbye. He was calling him to tell him he was sorry. He was calling him to tell him that he wished he was a better man. And he'll tell you, he feels terrible about putting his son in that position. He'll tell you he never should have done that, but that was the emotional state he was in at the time. He never in that conversation confessed about my goal was to kill your mom, but she got away. He never said that. He talked about what happened. He talked about how he hurt her. He never said those things. Not that way. Not that way. Emil tries to talk to him. Dad, don't kill yourself. A horrible situation for a boy that age to be in. But it made him think. He stayed up there longer. Finally, before the sun set, he decides, okay, I got to come down. It's time to just come down and deal with this. He had worked through some of those emotions. He said, I'm going to come down and just deal with this. So he comes down while the sun is still out onto the main road where the cops are. Not trying to escape by coming down to the main road where all the cops are. Not waiting till it's dark. Comes down. He's been up there processing everything that just happened, going through his emotional phases related to it, and now he comes down. And the cops grab him, and they think he's fleeing, so they grab him, and he's a little, they apprehend him. They apprehend him. He'll tell you, he feels awful that she got hurt. And you'll see it. I'm telling you, there's blood everywhere. There's a big gash. It was just one, maybe two hits with the rock. And then that's it. That's it. Medically speaking, not that bad. Visually, the photographs look horrible. Just letting you know. But you hear from the doctors. It was not life-threatening. It was not serious bodily injury. They stitched her up. 3 days later, she leaves the hospital. 3 days later, she logs on. He mentioned it. She gets an attorney within a day or two. Someone who's attorney specializing in criminal defense, TROs, things like that. He gets an attorney. She gets an attorney. 3 days after this incident, she goes onto their joint accounts, moves 130 grand. It's primarily his money without his permission. She's in touch with her attorney. They file a restraining order against him. The hearing's coming up. She knows she has to take the stand, testify under oath. Instead of take the stand, testify under oath, be cross-examined, she dismisses the restraining order against him. Shortly thereafter, you'll hear that she files for divorce. And you hear how even as recently as last week, her and her attorney that she signed off on this files something saying, because he attempted to kill me, I should get full custody of the kids, I should get the house, I should get half his retirement and keep mine. Things that she would never get absent these allegations. Just last week. Digital forensics. They got good guys that work there. They went through his entire computer, every last search. They were looking for searches like kill, wife, dangerous, hike. They didn't find any of that. They didn't find anything of that. He was looking into infidelity and things like that. He was trying to process it. You'll see how she was as well, listening to audio books about affairs and things like that. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you wait till you hear everything. Even the law on self-defense. Even the law on self-defense that you learn at the end. I ask you to keep an open mind. He never wanted her to get hurt. He feels terrible about that. He's disappointed in himself. He had a human reaction, a human reflex to her hitting him with the rock. And then he stopped. And then because of the person that he is, he was so disappointed that he went into this state of depression, suicidal thoughts. And that's why he was on the mountain. This is going to be a complex, long human story. It's also, the evidence will show, going to be a sad one for everyone involved. For Ms. Konig, their kids, and for Gerhardt. But it's not a simple story. The evidence will show it's not so simple of she had an affair, therefore he had a motive to kill her. The evidence will show human life, human emotions, human interactions are often much more complex than that. So I ask that you keep an open mind, listen to this entire human story, use your logic, reason, and common sense. She said he was trying to load the syringe in the middle of the fight. The evidence will show if he had a plan to use syringes, you think he might have it loaded ahead of time. They mentioned the things that were missing, the syringes. The evidence showed the rock is found right there. Right there. The evidence will show if somebody's going to hide evidence, they'd hide all of it. There was no syringes on the mountain, no attempt to throw him off a cliff. The witnesses got there at the very end. They did not see who started it or how it started. I thank you for your time this morning. I thank you for keeping an open mind, as we know you will. As you now know, there are two sides to this story. And it'll be your job at the end to use your reason, logic, and common sense and see which one makes more sense. Was this about not being willing to take a selfie? Or was this about a lot more? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otake. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take our first morning recess. Let's take a 10-minute recess. Ms. McCallum will collect you just after 10:40, and we'll come back into the courtroom. We'll begin the presentation of evidence. All right.